Okay, so that would be, what are we missing then? Lance. Oh, Gregory Crutchlow, he's not here yet. That's okay. Well, it is 4:10 and we officially have a quorum. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thanks to everyone who took time out of their day to be here. Really appreciate you caring about public transit in Lawrence. So we're going to start at 4:10 with Serena as Felice. Are you going to be doing the roll call and the rules of engagement?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Good evening. My name is Felice Laverne, Transit Planner 2. With me here is Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. He will work alongside Mike Wazakowski to facilitate the meeting proceedings. Adam and myself will facilitate the Zoom portion of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. When you are muted, a red line will appear over the icon. Muting your microphone during the meeting will make it easier for everyone to hear. You'll just have to remember to unmute if and when you want to speak. In some cases, we may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name and title for the benefit of those listening remotely. You can turn your video on and off by clicking on the video icon on the menu. For the purposes of this public meeting, please keep your video on when you're participating in the meeting. When you're not participating, it is okay to turn your video off. Just remember to turn your video back on when you're participating. If you're participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. For those using Zoom, somewhere on your screen, you will see a choice to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view tiles all the meeting participants. And now I will do the roll call. Lance Fay.
Here.
Max Schieber.
Here.
Mike Wazakowski.
Here.
Alan Ackland.
Here.
Gregory Critchlow.
Here.
Bill Wilson. August Rudistow.
Here.
Freddie Gipp.
Here. Well, that sounds pretty good. It looks like we have 7 of 8 people here. So thanks everyone on the committee for joining. Next item on the agenda after roll call is public comment. I definitely see some names here that I do not recognize. So I want first to offer to anyone who's not on PTAC, if you're here specifically to comment, now is a good time. Go ahead and take yourself off mute and speak up if you have something you'd like to say. Okay. Hearing nobody coming off mute, Adam, is there anyone in the city commission room?
There's none.
Oh, there we go. I see on City Hall. No. Okay. So no public comment today. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our meeting on December 13th last year. So committee members, I hope that you've had some time to look over the minutes and decide for yourself if there's anything that's incorrect and needs to be edited in them. As always, I will ask 3 times for proposed amendments, and if I hear none, then we will deem them approved by unanimous consent. So first call. Does anybody have anything that they would like to update on the minutes from the December meeting? Second call, do any committee members have any amendments to offer from December's meeting? Last call, are there any amendments to offer to the minutes from December's meeting? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are deemed approved by the committee by unanimous consent. Thank you, transit staff, for putting together those minutes for us. Okay, next item on the agenda, given the new calendar year, is to go through introductions for everyone. I guess I'll go ahead and start. Those of you who don't remember me or don't know me, my name is Mike Wazakowski. I am the chair of PTAC and have been for the last calendar year. Hopefully I will continue to be chair, but that's up to elections during the next agenda item. So next member want to introduce themselves, please?
Will that be me, Lance Fay, Vice Chair?
Let's go you, Lance.
Okay. Lance Fay, Vice Chair of PTAC. Joining you by Zoom today. Sorry I can't be there with you in person. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Thank you,
And,
Lance.
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. I might jump in and just ask. I think, a lot of you all have worked together for a year or more on the group, but I think it's useful to just be reminded kind of why people are interested in Lawrence Transit or in working on this group. So if maybe with your introduction, just give the group a little slice into your interest or what makes you want to be a part of PTAC. I think that would be useful for people just to be reminded of, kind of the skill sets around them.
Thanks, Adam. I'll go ahead and add in for myself. I'm by trade a data analyst, business analyst, data scientist, project manager, whatever. And I felt a lot of drive to use those skills for the good of the city and improving our public transit and everything that drives in terms of building up economic benefits for the city. I see a lot of great things that we can do with Lawrence Transit, and I hope that we continue to improve the transit system in this area for the future. Lance, do you have anything on?
Yeah, Lance Fay, Vice Chair, PTAC here. So I'm a lifelong public transit user, writer, and I've been a Lawrence resident for a long time, raised a family here, and so I like to be involved in the community, and again also see where there's a lot of good things that can be done with the resources we have for public transportation and other transportation infrastructure needs. And I've served on the committee now for, I guess this is my final year of 6, and I look forward to continuing to be involved however I can to make sure that we have resources, transportation resources we need as a community.
Thanks, Lance. Any other members want to speak up, or I can call on you and have you introduce yourselves?
Lachlan, the PTAC member.
Go ahead, Alan. I saw you first.
Okay, I don't know if I stepped on somebody. The second term, retired a few years ago, and just wanted to be able to get involved with some community issues. And backgrounds in civil engineering, worked for Power and Light out of Topeka and Kansas City for a number of years. So involved with a lot of city projects, both small and large towns. And so was always interested in the public transportation side of things. And so this is a way to kind of be involved and keep up with progress and hopefully try to help out with some history and plus look forward to some of the new approaches that we're heading towards.
Thank you, Alan. Gregory, I saw you come off mute, so I'll go you next.
Yeah, it's good afternoon, Gregory Critchlow. I am with the University of Kansas in the School of Architecture. Personally, I do not own a personal vehicle, so I use public transit quite often. But my real interest is how the infrastructure and the built environment is influenced by alternate means of transportation. So this is a real opportunity to participate in those conversations.
Thank you, Gregory. I believe we have at least 3 more committee members on the line right now.
I can go next. My name is Max Schieber, he, him, his pronouns. I'm a senior at KU right now. This is my first term on PTAC. I actually work for KU Transportation Services, but I'm really interested in transportation in general. And I hope I can give kind of a student perspective on some of the issues that we talk about and stuff. But I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you, Max. August or Freddie, want to go next?
I can go since you said my name first. My name is August Budisel. This is my second term, starting my second term. I was a daily writer for 6 or 7 years, so I know the system fairly well. And I just love Lawrence and want to be involved in helping things go smoother and be more efficient.
Thank you, August. Freddie, that leaves you best for last.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Freddie Gipp, PTAC member. I'm on my first term. Started last year before the pandemic, I believe. I don't know, it's kind of been a blur since then, but my interest kind of comes from being a lifelong resident here in Lawrence and seeing kind of the mutual benefits of transit when I was a student at KU, and now post-graduation kind of analyzing, seeing how transportation can be an asset for, I guess, partnership development, making Lawrence more attractive in the sense of, you know, maybe tribes coming in, stuff like that. And so my interest kind of lays, how can we increase transportation for high school and anything in between for that and the students? And yeah, and so that's where I kind of come in, just with that focus and perspective and priorities to kind of focus on transportation from that perspective.
Thanks, Freddie. I believe that's every member that's on the call right now. As Adam noted, one of our members, Bill, is not here at this time. Bill Griffin, I believe. And did I get that right? Yeah, Bill Wilson, sorry. Bill Wilson is not here. So he will be here at some meeting in the future, I assume. Our next item on the agenda then is chair and vice chair elections for this calendar year. So as you know, we have a chair and a vice chair who coordinate with Adam to establish our legislative agenda, to establish items that we want to discuss during our monthly meetings, determine if we need any other meetings with the team beyond just our monthly Zoom sessions that we've been having, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to improve transit in the city. I don't know about Lance, but personally, I've enjoyed being your chair for the last year, and I'd hope that you guys appreciate the leadership that I've shown and want to keep me on for another year. So I do not necessarily plan to nominate myself, but if you do nominate me, I would gladly accept.
This is August Budisel. All right, this is August Budisel, PTAC member. I have appreciated Mike's experience and leadership throughout that last year. Coming on in my first term, it was I was very nervous about being inexperienced and not knowing the proper way to say things and vote on things. So I would like to nominate Mike Wasikowski and his new eyeglasses for another term as committee chair.
They're blue light glasses, but thank you. Is there a second for that nomination?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Max. Are there any other competing nominations? Anyone else who wants to run for chair? Okay, I'll make this one last time before handing it over to Adam. Are there any other people who are interested in running for chair of PTAC? Okay, I think that we have a right motion on the floor then, Adam. So Felice, could you go through and tally up votes?
Lance Fay,
Yes.
Max Schieber,
Yes.
Mike Wasikowski,
Aye.
Alan Ackland,
Aye.
Gregory Critchlow,
Yes.
Bill Wilson, August Rudisell,
Aye.
Freddie Gipp,
Aye.
Sounds like it's 7-0. Thank you very much, everyone, for voting me in again. Looking forward to another good year with you all. So we do need a vice chair, and right now Lance Fay is our vice chair. I'll leave it up to him if he would be willing to accept the nomination or not, but I would definitely like to motion that he continues as vice chair. I definitely appreciate his perspective on the transit system. I don't ride as often as I would like to, so I know that having someone in that leadership role who knows what it's like to ride the system here, it's valuable to us. So Lance, I would like to nominate you for vice chair for another year.
Lance Fay, vice chair. And yeah, thank you, Mike. Yes, I'd be glad to do one more year of vice chair. This will be my last year that I can be on this committee. So it'd be great to continue to assist as I have.
Well, thank you. Are there any seconds to this nomination? Do we have a second?
August Rudisell, I second the nomination.
Okay, thank you, August. Before we put this up to a vote, does anyone else on the committee who's here want to run for vice chair? Any other nominations? Okay, Felice, we have a motion right for Lance to be vice chair.
Lance Fay,
Yes.
Max Schieber,
Yes.
Mike Wazakowski,
Aye.
Alan Ackland,
Aye.
Gregory Critchlow,
Yes.
Bill Wilson,
Absent.
August Rudisell,
Aye.
Freddie Gipp,
Aye.
Another unanimous vote. Thank you very much, everyone. Lance, looking forward to working with you for your last year on PTAC. Sorry it's your last one, but we'll make it a good one.
It is.
Yep. Okay, next item on the agenda is PTAC onboarding. Adam, I believe you and your staff have some information to present to us.
Yes, so Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. You may have noticed that a lot of tonight's agenda is a lot of housekeeping. Just trying to get some of the base kind of laid for another good year for us. I don't believe last year we had kind of a formal group onboarding. I know I worked with some of you who came on PTAC for the first time to talk through kind of how things are set up, but I thought it would be useful as a group to talk through that a little bit. We won't spend more time on it than we absolutely need to, but I think it would be good for the group to see and understand. So give me a second here. So I just wanted to cover a few things, look briefly at the bylaws for PTAC, roles and expectations for you all that you should be familiar with, but saying them out loud can help. And also just looking at how we connect with the strategic plan in our work. So I linked to the bylaws. You're welcome to read those out in full there. I did just pull out the purpose, which as you can see, leads a pretty broad mandate for PTAC. So purpose of Public Transit Advisory Committee is to advise governing body, which is City Commission of City of Lawrence regarding issues affecting public transit. So that is a broad mandate. There's a lot of work that you all can advise the City Commission on. In general, I can tell you all do a good job of this, but just as a reminder, you know, what really the expectations of all of you is just to be looking at materials before the meeting, so you're prepared to speak or ask questions. Really would encourage members to speak up, even if you are feeling in the minority as far as you know, your position on certain issues. I think disagreement's a good thing for our group. It helps us get to a better end product. So this is just me encouraging you to do that. And if there's anything that, the group is kind of guiding us towards as staff, that's really my role to help kind of take that direction and think about how it fits with our current work plan and how it affects the strategic plan and, the best way forward. So I hope to be a good guide in that, but, from your side of the aisle, keep challenging us with your thoughts and where you want to see us go, and we'll hopefully help guide it along the way. Just bring in a little strategic plan information. So the first paragraph is kind of the broad outline for what the strategic plan is. So moves the city towards a vision in a manner that involves the development and prioritization of strategic goals with measurable strategies, which is a key piece of this. There's a lot of work around performance indicators in the strategic plan. I'm not sure if you can see that graphic very well, but in general, we've got a comprehensive plan for the city, Plan 2040. That plan kind of sets a large vision for a lot of different things that the community wants to do. Strategic plan is kind of a short-term, how do we make progress on that comp plan in a short-term, measurable, budget-constrained way. I won't go through all of this. I will just highlight that of the 5 outcome areas that are in the strategic plan, Connected City is really the one that resonates most with all the work that we do. I listed out a number of the progress indicators, which are the KPIs in the strategic plan that we are most aligned with. You see a number of them that start with CC. They're out of the Connected City outcome area. There are a couple of progress indicators that are in different outcome areas. Strong welcoming neighborhoods being one of those, and unmistakable identity being another. By nature of the work that we do in transit, we're able to affect some of the progress indicators in other areas as well. So, most of our work will be around kind of the focus of the Connected City outcome area, but certainly with some of the way we try to integrate art, the way we try to connect with other community resources like healthy food centers, those sorts of things start to be impacting other outcome areas of the strategic plan. So really, as I list on the bottom bullet, really each agenda item that we put forward should be in the pursuit of moving those KPIs in the direction that we want them to go, that are listed in the strategic plan. If we find ourselves doing something outside of that, we just need to be very thoughtful about why that is. Is that a progress indicator that needs to be considered in a future strategic plan, or is that something we really should be less focused on while we try to work towards these other things? There's a lot of big, challenging, needles to move on this list. There's one about in the middle, CC11, percentage of trips not taken in an automobile. There are, really anything that we do that removes a barrier to transit is in the pursuit of making using the bus an easy choice for people, and ideally kind of more balancing the transportation network. So that's one of those KPIs that's a short one, but also very complex and very hard to move that needle. But we'll certainly keep trying to do so. That is a short presentation. I will pause and I'm happy to go back to anything if there are questions, but we do have some other things to run through as well. So let me know what you're thinking.
Yeah, could you please move back to the previous slide? Thank you, Adam. I'm curious, on the CC-4, is that like a hybrid KPI then, given that there's a lot of different kinds of public infrastructure that are involved in there?
It's a good question. Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. One of the general challenges with the Connected City outcome area is that it groups a lot of different elements that the city is trying to move the needle on. So it brings in a lot of what MSO does, a lot of what IT does, and also transportation. So yes, what you see reflected there is is an attempt to have one progress indicator for a lot of different measures for reliability that we're trying to aim for. That particular progress indicator is still under construction, if you will, as far as us finding the right way to display how well we're doing on that, because those reliability measures are so different when you're looking at wastewater versus transit, very different reliability measures. So it currently lives in one, and we're still working to figure out how to best put that in the scorecard.
On CC-6, can you provide a definition for environmental justice zone, or like identify like the areas in Lawrence that would fit that criteria?
Yes, so Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. So EJ zones throughout town are areas with higher than normal minority populations and low income populations. There's plenty of math behind that on the MPO's website, but you would maybe be surprised at how much area in Lawrence is one or both of those zones. So there's quite a bit of our city limits that are within one or both of those EJ zones. So it's essentially, that KPI is focused on equity and the intention around us providing our services in a way that reaches the people that need it most and doesn't concentrate our services in areas that are outside of where there are people who are minority or low income or living.
Okay, thank you.
I might mention one more thing about that, because we changed that just a little bit. I think for a long time there's been discussion around the appropriate number of bus stops, how frequently should bus stops be placed, and the most of this sentence you see ends with within a quarter mile of a transit stop. As we've been looking through route redesign and considering on-demand microtransit zones, we did shift this one a little bit from the norm that you might see across other cities to include on-demand transit zones, because it just might be that some areas of town might never be dense enough to be appropriate for a fixed route bus. But as far as people accessing Lawrence Transit services, an on-demand zone would also be a way that those people can access services. So that's just some nuance, I guess, that we wanted to make sure we kind of accounted for the way our service looks today, but the way it can possibly look, moving forward.
Do any PTAC members or myself have comments, questions, concerns about this presentation, or in particular this slide? I think this is the meat and bones of what we have to focus on as PTAC, is improving these outcome areas.
Gregory Critchlow, PTAC. One question that I would have, and specifically is on CC11. In terms of the quantitative data, is there some kind of survey or understanding what the reduction of an individual automobile use is, and how that is manipulated or influenced by, for instance, the number of stops, the frequency of bus, those kind of points?
Yeah, Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. So like I said, that one is going to be our biggest hill to try to conquer. Right now, that data comes from the census, or the American Community Survey, which is run more frequently than the census. The measure isn't perfect. It's commute trips. That's the question in the ACS survey. With the nature of the world these days, there's not as clear of commute in the morning and evening kind of culture as there has been in the past. So that particular KPI has a very consistent measure. There's always going to be an ACS survey every year, so we're going to be able to track that number. and so that's what we're working with right now. To your second question about like what can affect that, I mean, this is really where there are so many different barriers that we try to address as a transit department. So, you know, proximity to accessing the bus. People don't want to walk too far for the bus. Cost, as we look at things like fare free, frequency, as we look at how often the bus comes, comfort of waiting at a bus stop. You know, there's any number of things that we can do to make it easier and easier, more and more comfortable for people to take modes that are not a single occupancy vehicle. And that goes beyond transit. I mean, you look at bike infrastructure as well, land use when it comes to building a denser environment where people live closer to the things that they need so that they can walk and bike there and take the bus without driving. This one can really be affected by a whole lot of things, and almost everything we do that makes transit a little easier for the passenger is in the attempt to move this number, even though it takes a great number of those improvements to start to convince people that the bus really is an easy choice.
I would add in there that one thing that's not necessarily in our control, but tangentially is related, is reasons that why they would take a automobile by themselves to a place. So if you get rid of substantial parking, like say we have in a downtown area, that would be something that would convince people maybe they shouldn't be driving, maybe they need another way to get to downtown, like bus. So there's pushes and pulls that you can do on both ends, I think. Just not necessarily within our purview. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Adam, for this information. Next item on the agenda then is an overview of Lawrence Transit and the many active projects that Lawrence Transit has ongoing. Adam, I believe we have another presentation for this.
Yes, Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. So again, I'll go through this relatively quickly, but happy to go back to anything that's of interest. Just wanted to frame kind of where Lawrence Transit has come, where we sit within the system and some of the partners we work with, and give you an idea of what our 2022 looks like. And happy to answer any questions you have. So this is not an exhaustive history, but just to highlight kind of generally where we've come from. You see the establishment of our system in the year 2000. That was about 30 years after KU began their service. You know, obviously there's been a lot of coordination since we started the city service, including using the same service provider. We both contract with First Transit, which leads to a lot of efficiencies. We joint fund routes. Our first one was in August 2009, and operate out of one maintenance facility out north of town. 20 total routes across the system. That's both City of Lawrence routes and KU routes. With the city, we operate fixed route system, paratransit, which is a complimentary ADA service, as well as Nightline, which is demand response overnight service. KU also has fixed route and paratransit, their paratransit being the J-Lift. They also offer some student-focused services such as Safe Ride and charters that are done for particular unique services. Looking at our current system of bus stops, we are a little under half accessible as we work towards improving that number. We have a little over 60 shelters out there and 50 benches. And we continue to look back at 2019 for what we consider a normal year, but our ridership right around 3 million, which is something we certainly hope to get back to as the world hopefully normalizes moving forward. So this is pretty small. I just wanted to give you a sense of kind of where we sit in the city. So again, this is not an exhaustive org chart, but under the city manager, you can see a number of different offices and departments. Transit and parking is a division of the city manager's office. So we are in the same group as a number of other kind of core city services, including HR and public information, risk management. We have a staff of 7 of us once we get fully staffed. So this looks ahead a little bit because some of these positions aren't in full effect just yet. But aside from myself, we have Wendy in our office who works with a lot of the grant management and a lot of different administrative things. Emily, who works on our marketing and communications. Elise next to me does a lot of our planning, outreach, technical work. We do have an opening out for a Transit Planner 1, which is a shift we made from Serena's old position to get some additional project support. We've got a lot of projects in the works and a need for a lot of that help. Administrative technician is a position we don't have open yet, but that'll be a person who staffs the customer service window at the transit facility over at Bob Billings and Crestline. So that'll be a key public facing position for us. And then we're planning to continue our intern program. Candace is our current intern and that'll be a program we continue as well. So that's the group of city staff that work for Lawrence Transit. We do oversee, like I alluded to before, First Transit, which is the contracted operator of services. So there are a lot of folks on that side of the house, a handful of administrative and more than 100 bus operators. So there's a lot of folks tied to public transit, but just wanted to give you a sense of kind of how that all fits together. So I won't go through this one by one either, but just wanted to give you a sense. So on the left column, I've listed what I would consider kind of our day-to-day, week-to-week. These are things we're going to do every year, kind of no matter what. These are baseline type duties that we split among staff. And then on the right side, you see projects that we plan to work on and complete in 2022. So there's quite a lot on there. We try to bring as much of that to you all as we can, but are certainly trying to push to make the system and you know, the environment for passengers better as much as we can. So again, this is something I probably won't go point by point through, but maybe anticipate coming back to if any of you all have questions about a certain project or process. I guess that was the last slide, so I'll go back and turn it back to you, Mike.
Open up the floor for questions. Do any PTAC members or myself have comments, questions, concerns about these operations and projects? Okay, I'll bring up a couple then. On the project side, Adam, what do you see as being like the biggest efforts, highest priority ones that we need to get done this year?
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. I tried to put the most time-consuming and largest projects towards the top, and it really does come down to 3, which you could probably argue are actually 4. So transit facility, route redesign, and electric buses. Those are 3 big efforts that a couple of them have even some branches to them. So, you know, the transit facility, we have a lot of upcoming work on design and construction and managing that project. That will be overlaid by us also kind of setting off on a lot more engagement work for downtown improvements. So while that was one project, it mostly becomes two starting this year, just given the timeline of each of those. So that certainly is going to be, you know, a fair amount of time for us to work through. Route redesign as well. You know, we're getting into the nuts and bolts of what the final scenario might look like right now with the consultant, trying to work towards some good digestible information that the public can give us feedback on. But that's certainly, you know, a big change, a lot of changes. So working through that and the timing of it is something that will take significant amount more of engagement and some technical work. And then electric buses is, again, it's one project that has turned into two because of winning 2 consecutive grants in a row. So we certainly are going to be able to streamline some of that work, but starting very soon, we'll be starting on the construction for the charging equipment out at the maintenance facility, and we'll be receiving our first bus in March, with all 5 being here before May 1st. So very quickly we're getting into, you know, phase 1, a lot of things hitting the ground, while at the same time starting to plan for what phase 2 looks like the following year. Because there's plenty of modeling work as technology changes, and, you know, kind of planning for how that follow-on group of 2 buses fits in as well. So that's, I would say those are going to dominate a lot of probably what you all see as far as the information we bring to you. But certainly, as I look through this other list, probably it's hard for me to look at one that won't come to you on an agenda for the rest of the list. So you'll see these other things as well. They're as important. They just maybe don't have quite as much capital and kind of first time nature to them. But, you know, you certainly see a couple of things related to bus stops. We've got a lot of work to do developing a more technical and transparent process for how we prioritize our bus stop improvements and where we're headed, and how we map that out in an equitable way, but also a way that we can get you know, improvements out on the street. You know, there's kind of partner projects within here, you know, the Community Foundation grant, the SELF project, which is with KU engineering students. There's a lot of kind of very unique project management work that will net a lot of great benefit for us and for the community. But yes, it certainly can be an intimidating list to look through, but I think if you look towards the top, that's where a lot of time and energy will be spent for sure.
Thank you, Adam. The only one that pops up in my eye that I want to know more about right now is the Mystery Rider program implementation. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. So Mystery Rider program, in some of the discussions with our contracted operator First Transit and road supervisors who do a great job kind of overseeing that system, there has just been, there's been discussions around how do we evaluate our system just to make sure we're doing everything appropriately, and finding ways that we should be or could be retraining operators under certain kind of instances that show up more than once. On the flip side of that, can we also be observing our operators doing the right thing so that we can have some positive feedback loop of work that can be very, very difficult for them, and, you know, a lot is asked of bus operators. So the Mystery Rider program is kind of like it sounds. The idea is for us to train volunteers to help ride the bus, and I mentioned a lot of kind of operator onboard things, but also at the bus stop, we're looking for mystery riders to help us evaluate condition of bus stop. Are our signs, are there any issues with our signs and kind of like the stickers we have on them? Do we have issues with trash at a certain bus stop? Is the bus in good condition? Do passengers hear the ADA callouts, the bus operator announcing each stop as they approach it, which is a federally mandated thing that we must do. So the idea is a group of volunteers that helps us just on a regular basis, ride the system, evaluate the system, help us keep on tabs of areas that we may need to look for improvement or, just catch things, both like physical challenges with bus stops and buses or behaviors that we, just with our normal staff riding, aren't always gonna catch. So that's the intent of that program.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Before we close this out, I'll offer it back up to PTAC members. Do any of you have comments, questions, or concerns about these operations and projects listed here?
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. I might just mention one more thing. Part of the reason I show this is just to put in context, some of the work. It's not necessarily to overwhelm you with what this year looks like, or just to convince you that we are very, very busy. It's kind of to lay out, because we only see a few main agenda items in each month. I want you to have a bigger picture of the things that we're working towards. And, especially as we get towards the end of the year, some way we can check in and know how are we doing on all these big goals that we had and all these things we said we were going to accomplish. It also can help if we do, throughout the year, discover some new initiatives we want to go down or some different way we want to do things. We'll need to think about that new thing in the context of this work that's already on the slate, and kind of process that through strategic plan and what's the best use of our time and resources. If we find a new path or project that we want to start heading down, we can do that. Let's just think about what would need to be pushed to a later year or minimized so that we can accomplish those things. So just wanted to frame that a little bit on how this might be used later down the year.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense completely. I mean, we have right now, I think you said 5 people on staff, including the intern who it's 5 people if you do a full time, you're talking about 10,000 hours of work that everyone can do. And anything that we add to that has to fit into those 10,000 or so hours or whatever extra we get from hiring the 2 extra people that have the open proposals. So good food for thought about we need to be judicious about what we add in. And if we do, we need to be conscientious about what are we deprioritizing or just canceling outright. Okay, thank you for that discussion, Adam. Next item on the agenda is unfortunately not going to be fun, I'm sure, our annual COMA training. So for those of you who've been here before, you understand that we have to adhere to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. So we have to go through annual training to remember what is the point of Kansas Open Meetings Act and what constitutes violations. So Adam, I believe you have some materials to present to us from the city.
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. I'm going to tell our legal department that you guys were super excited for this. I mean,
okay, disregard my previous comment. We can strike it from the record.
All right, we'll make it as painless as we can. Okay, so Kansas Open Meeting Act. So essentially this presentation is just to make sure we're all on the same page about the rules we need to follow. Based on this principle that the public has a right to know public business, information is essential to democratic process. Nothing to add there. So we need to talk about what constitutes a meeting. PTAC is a covered entity in COMA. So other covered entities, so it applies to all of the advisory bodies in the city, and particularly those that are funded in whole or part by public funds. So These three elements need to be present for a meeting to happen. So there needs to be a majority of members. In the case of PTAC, that means 5. Interactive communication. So we'll talk a little about a newer idea of this, but it can be in person, it can be on the phone, it can be an email chain, it can be a Facebook conversation. There's a number of different ways interactive communication can happen, and you have to be discussing business or affairs of the body. So I mentioned that magic number of 5. So here are some of the ways that communication happened that I had mentioned. So it does talk about social gatherings, or if there was some conference that 5 PTAC members were at. If you're kind of taking in information but you're not discussing business of the body, those things are okay by COMA. So I mentioned email. Physical presence or us being on Zoom is one thing. It also applies if there's an email chain. If I do send things out to you all, it's typically putting you all on the BCC line so that there's really not a way for you to reply all to the group. This is one of the reasons why we do that. I mentioned the Facebook posts. So even if kind of communication is happening over time, if you're adding posts day after day, that can still be considered a meeting. So takeaway from this is I'll just urge you to act with caution. If you're starting to think that anything could be a violation, just be thoughtful about that. You can always shoot me a message. I had mentioned with emails, just avoiding that reply all. Serial meetings is a loophole that is not allowed. So you can't meet with a couple of PTAC members and then go meet separately with a couple others, all the while staying under 5 members. But in reality, creating a meeting just over time across smaller groups, that's not a thing that's allowed. So just to recap, covered entity, which PTAC is, and there has to be a meeting, which includes these 3 elements. You have to give proper public notice for all meetings. So that is one of the reasons we're here in the commission room. It's an accessible building under this hybrid environment that we are in. And we are live streamed and recorded so that people can observe or listen. Have to post notice of these meetings. There is not necessarily a time frame, although you'll notice that it's our intent to get you all materials a week ahead of meetings, and that is that's the notice time for the general public as well. Don't have to create an agenda. Of course, there's great utility in doing so. So you understand what we're talking about and you see materials that we'll be walking through. We have not ever attempted to do this, but if we ever needed to talk in executive session for any reason, we can consult our legal to do that, but we should not have a reason we would need to have executive session. So I'll just mention that there are, potential ramifications for COMA violations, $250 civil penalty, retraining. If there were actions taken under those circumstances, they could be invalidated. We will not get to this point. What do we think about that, Mike? That was fun
Much
for
more
me.
exciting than I thought it would be. On a serious note, the most common place that I see potential for us violating COMA is in online communications. In particular, anytime a city member of the public, whatever, wants to address us and they do that in a manner that is not coming to this meeting and presenting themselves in a way that is public, there is opportunity for that. I've seen a handful of times last year where people emailed the entire membership of the community, or the entire membership of the committee with their public comments on an issue or another. Mostly, I believe it was related to the transit facility when I saw this happen. And I didn't always, I think, but tried to make a note when that happened, hey, do not reply to this message, because doing that would immediately flag that this is particular business for the committee, that every single member of the committee is on, therefore it would automatically be constituted as a meeting that is not publicly available to everyone. And that's the kind of thing that we can't afford. So if there's ever anyone messaging everybody in the committee, it either needs to come from Adam, or it needs to be a message that you understand is not something that we can address until we get to a public forum like this. So just to keep your eyes peeled. If someone's emailing you about PTAC stuff, perfectly fine for them to email us, because we need to know about what the public thinks, but we need to redirect it to a proper forum, which is coming to one of these meetings and inviting them to address during public comment time. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns from PTAC members before we advance in the agenda? Hearing none, thank you, Adam, for that information. Very useful for us, whether it's exciting or not. Next thing on the agenda, going into section E, PTAC member items. So I want to bring up, do any people here have agenda or work session items that they would like us to address at some point in the future? You can bring them up now. If you're not comfortable with that, you may email Lance, Adam, and myself with suggestions. We meet at the end of every month to establish our agenda for the following month's meeting. So feel free, we will consider any and all topics of interest that you have for our agendas. So does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up at this time from the committee? Okay, feel free to email us. We'll get to it at the end of January then and add it to February's agenda. Next item then is a update on the pedestrian plan from Lance Fahey. Lance, do you have any updates to provide us on how the pedestrian plan is going?
Lance Fahey, Vice Chair. At this time, I do not. There is going to be a meeting later this month, but as of this point, I have nothing for you today. Sorry.
All right. Thank you for that update, at least. Adam, do you have anything to add on that beyond what we talked about in December, I believe?
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. I don't. There should be drafts coming out soon for review. But Lance and his steering committee group will charter that through soon.
Okay, thank you. And the next items on the agenda are transit staff items. Two things in particular. First, a update on the public participation plan.
So Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. We are working with the MPO to develop an update to a joint public participation plan, and we're making a lot of progress on it. That's another plan that will have some public comment periods upcoming. It's very different than the one we currently have. It's pretty slim. This update, we're trying to take advantage of some new knowledge gained around the IAP2 system. The International Association of Public Participation has a pretty good process for how you can walk through not only preparation and then implementation of public engagement and evaluation of that. So we're trying to fold that in. We've had myself trained in IAP2, and we'll have a couple other staff members trained in the next couple of weeks. So that's the direction we're moving there. You'll see opportunity for public comment on that draft pretty soon. And so I'll have more to talk about at future meetings.
Thank you.
And
The
Yeah, I'll
next
pause there if
item
there's
is
any
the-
questions about that one.
Sorry, yeah. Are there any questions about public participation as we go into soliciting better input on the downtown transit hub? Okay. Hearing none, thank you. Next item then is the PTAC field trip scheduled for this Saturday.
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager. We had talked as a group before about doing some on the bus, familiarization. I thought it was a good opportunity maybe at the beginning of a year in the spirit of all the onboarding we just did over Zoom. So I set up, I say set up, if you have time, we'd be taking a bus that is already going to go from downtown out to South Iowa. But let me share this agenda here real quick. So the intent of this field trip would really just be essentially travel training while talking about some of the bus stop infrastructure along the way, because there's been a lot of progress in that area. So in general, we have set up to take Route 7 from downtown out to South Iowa and back from around 9:30 in the morning to around 11:30, depending on the anyone who may be interested and kind of the time frame people have available. We could also from South Iowa take Route 11 back to downtown to see a different route that does some different things. It does take a little longer, but throughout this, you can see just some of the elements I could talk about as the host on this transit journey. So, we could talk through and look at mobile fare payment, relatively recently deployed, and how that works. A lot of this how to ride stuff. So how does the bike rack on the front of a bus work? How do the elements of a bus work? Fare box, the stop cord that you need to pull. If someone enters in a wheelchair, how do they get secured? Those sorts of things. And then you'll see a number of different bullets related to bus stop improvements, artwork that has been put out there, some of our AIC projects that we're still waiting to hear back on that state grant funding, but we could talk about flip seats and just how that looks inside the bus if it were to be implemented, those sorts of topics. So the group expressed some interest in having some sort of tour field trip sort of opportunity, and this is one way we can do it. So I would ask if there are any questions about this, or if there is interest. I would like, if you are interested, if you could please email me just so I can get a sense of who might come. I may take this bus trip anyways to do some Saturday grocery shopping, but if it'd be helpful to know if there's 2 people coming or 5 people coming, that would make, just so I know who to look out for. I'll leave it at that if there's any questions.
Only thing I would ask is if we get 5 or more people, how are we going to get this through COMA? Because this is very clearly business that we relate to.
Yeah, and that's part of, that's an important question on today's topic. So
I have a thought that we could then split it up. I could come down and we could do 2 different buses a half hour apart or something.
Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager, and that's a good idea, Margareta. So I think I'd like to handle that depending on RSVPs. And if there are 5 or more, I think that's a good way that we could handle that. We could also do it on completely different days if we weren't able to get multiple staff, but let's navigate that kind of as I hear from people and their interest.
I concur. I'll put this on my calendar. I do plan on 10, and I will email you my formal RSVP. Okay. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns from PTAC members about this potential field trip? Okay.
Departure time.
Oh, go ahead, August.
I was just gonna say departure time is 33 after. You miss it, you gotta wait till top of the hour.
We'll definitely have to make sure we get there so that we don't miss the bus then. Okay, well, seeing no other discussion, thank you all very much for attending. We will be gathering again on February 14th. Hopefully this doesn't ruin your Valentine's Day plans. I don't have anything planned explicitly quite yet, but we'll be done by 5:30. So hopefully we can at least do something for dinner. Thank you, everyone. And with that, we will adjourn. So have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.